Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar and workshop series conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming SCS exams happening in February 2026. My name is Nicholas and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for SCS at TCS. So let's look at the session plan. First things first, I'm going to share a 3-week study plan with you. If you're still contemplating about starting your preparations, you need not worry. I'm going to share a 3-week study plan, and if you stick to the study plan, you can get everything done within the final 3 weeks leading up to your exam. And also, I'm going to conduct an E3 masterclass. So first things first, I'm going to take you to the syllabus elements through the syllabus elements tied to your E3 syllabus, and then I'm going to direct your attention towards a question taken from SCS Mock 7 section number 2. And also, as usual, I'm going to conduct a Q&A towards the very end of today's session. All right, so let me quickly remind you of the upcoming workshops we have, or the masterclasses we have, scheduled for you. So similar to what I'm going to cover in today's masterclass, I'm going to conduct 2 additional masterclasses in the upcoming weeks. And it's happening on the 1st of February, which is a Sunday at 10 GMT. And the second one is happening on the 8th of February. In each of these masterclasses, I will be directing your attention towards any syllabus elements which you are interested in understanding. I'm not going to explain everything, but I'm going to direct your attention towards one of the subtasks which are contained within our mocks and explain how you should develop your answers. And also in the final workshop, which happens just 2 or 3 days before your examination, I will be sharing last minute tips with you to make sure that you are capable of walking into the exam with a high level of positivity, because if you are positive before the exam, you are going to be positive during the exam. So it's essential that you take steps to improve your confidence, because if you believe in yourself, then you will feel positive both before and during your examination. So I hope you will attend these upcoming masterclasses and workshops as well, so that you benefit from what we are going to share. And this is the best way to keep tabs about your performance on a weekly basis. Oh, okay. So having said that, I'm going to direct your attention towards the 3-week study plan. So, I shared a similar plan, last week as well. Those who ended up, especially focused on those who ended up failing the SCS examination. And similar to the same approach, I've developed a 3-week study plan. And, you have to take steps to, when conducting preparations, you have to take steps to master each mock exam. And when it comes to mastering each mock exam, you should stick to this 3-step approach. So step number 1 is to attempt each mock under exam conditions. The objective is not to gather any type of understanding or to learn something. The objective is to practice your answering, time management, and stress management techniques under exam conditions. So after practicing these 3 elements, then you should direct your attention towards the second step, which is to learn. This is where you are supposed to learn theory and application by watching masterclasses. So don't try to learn theory and application on your own, because you simply have 3 weeks at your disposal. You do not have time to waste. So simply watch the masterclasses which we have developed, which are 100% aligned with the mocks which we have shared with you. So when you watch these masterclasses, you will easily understand how to structure your answers, how to approach each syllabus element, the logic behind each answers, and at the same time, you will learn how to deal with application. So once you have learned these 2 elements, theory and application, then the third step is to revise, which is the most important step. Because if you do not spend time to revise, you are not taking steps to improve or refine your answering technique. So it's essential that you take steps to improve your skill set when conducting preparations. And the third element of our study plan, which is to revise, is the most crucial one, because you need to spend a considerable amount of time to practice your answering technique. With this in mind, you have to develop answer plans on your own and try to figure out whether you have gained something via the master classes. So for instance, if I give you an example, if there was a certain question in which you were expected to highlight 10 points and you learned these 10 points via the master classes, but when it comes to redeveloping answer plans, you figure out that although you were supposed to mention 10 points, you have only included 8. So when this is the case, you can easily spot the 2 points which you have missed out on. So this is the only way and the easiest way to significantly improve your chances of developing high quality answers, because at the examiner is not going to look at the number of words you have typed or the quantity of your answer. Instead, the examiner is going to look at quality. So that's why it's essential that you take steps to redevelop answer plans with the intention of refining or improving your answering technique. So last time when you were conducting your preparations, you might have attempted mock exams, but I'm pretty sure that you didn't dedicate enough time to revise. So it's essential that you practice the third step. When attempting each mock exam, spend a considerable amount of time to nail your answering technique, because at the exam, you will get marks based on the way in which you structure your answers and based on the type of points which you highlight within each and every answer. So stick to this 3-step process when, with the intention of mastering each mock exam. And if you stick to this process, you are not just attempting the 6 mock exams, you have taken steps to master each, which will ensure that you score 90 plus marks easily at your upcoming exam. All right. So given this premise, I've developed a study plan which is spread across 3 weeks, and I've considered the exam week as a separate week. So you are supposed to start, you can start from tomorrow or from Monday. And even if you start on Monday, you still have enough time to attempt each mock exam and conduct your revision focused on the same mock exams. So you have to kickstart your preparations by watching the pre-scene analysis videos, because it's essential that you gain an in-depth understanding of the internals and externals of Cewmlator before you start mock attempts. So that is going to take 3 hours of your time. Then you have to kickstart your preparations based on mastering each mock exam. So on a weekly basis, you are supposed to attempt 2 mock exams and then take steps to revise based on the same 2 mock exams. So you are supposed to complete 6 mocks within 3 weeks. Then you have to master 2 mock exams per week. So when trying to do this, if you feel that you do not have time, then there is a shortcut. What is the shortcut? Rather than attempting all 6 mocks under exam conditions, you can attempt just 3 mock exams with the intention of practicing your answering, time management, and stress management techniques under exam conditions. So when you are practicing mock exams under exam conditions, take steps to practice mock number 1, 3, and 5 under exam conditions. I don't mind if you don't attempt mocks 2, 4, and 6 under exam conditions. So since you are, if you feel that you are running out of time, since you just have 3 weeks at your disposal, our recommended approach is to attempt all 6 mocks under exam conditions. But if you feel that you do not have time to attempt all 6 mock exams, because each mock exam, to attempt it under exam conditions, it takes 3 hours. You have to sit in one place across 3 hours and attempt all 3 sections one after the other. If you feel that you cannot find that amount of time, then simply make up your mind to attempt mocks 1, 3, and 5 under exam conditions. Focused on the remaining mock exams, you can simply watch the master classes and take steps to redevelop your answer plans. All right. So I hope this is clear. So when attempting mocks 1, 3, and 5, attempt the mock exam under exam conditions, then take steps to revise. And when it comes to mocks 2, 4, and 6, you need not attempt each mock under exam conditions. Just read the question and watch the master classes. Then you will learn theory and application. Once you have learned these things, spend your time to redevelop answer plans, because as I mentioned earlier, out of this 3-step approach, the third step is the most important one. Even if you do not attempt any mock exam under exam conditions, if you nail your answering technique by revising, by watching the master classes, and then if you take steps to revise, then you are aware of how to approach each syllabus area how to structure your answers, and what type of points you need to include in your answers. So this is the second and the third steps are the most important ones. So if you feel that you are running out of time, you do not have time to attempt each mock under exam conditions, that's totally fine. I want you to really focus on learning theory and masterclasses by watching masterclasses, and learning theory and application by watching masterclasses, and then taking steps to revise by redeveloping answer plans. All right. And if you stick to this process, when you are in the exam week, when all the other students are trying to attempt mock exams, when they are trying to revise, as well as when they are lost for time, you are relaxing, because it's essential that you relax in the exam week. Because if you are calm and composed before the exam, you are going to be calm and composed on the day of your exam. It's essential that you are calm and positive. It's essential that you believe in your skill set. So if you want to believe in your skill set on the day of the exam, you need to put in all the effort in the upcoming 3 weeks, master each of the 6 mock exams. Then you will know for sure that you are not going to struggle at your exam, because you know for a fact that you know how to approach each syllabus area. You know how to structure your answers. You have learned your application, not just learned theory and application. You have taken steps to practice these 2 elements when redeveloping answer plans. When you know this, you will be extremely confident, because you are not ever going to doubt yourself, because you know for a fact that you have stuck to a foolproof method with the intention of covering the entire syllabus and getting your bearings about how to deal with application and how to structure your answers. So within the exam week, you are simply supposed to read through the answer plans focused on mocks 1 to 7. When you do so, you will be going through 63 subtasks, on the exam week, which is as if you are going through the entire syllabus one last time. You are reminding yourself about how to deal with application one last time. When you have done all these things in the exam week, you can walk into the exam with a high level of confidence and positivity. And once you have completed your mock attempts, or mastering each mock exam, and in the exam week, when you have read through the answer plans, then you are supposed to stop work a day or two before the exam. Ideally, you should stop work 2 days before the exam. Start resting, because when you are relaxed before the exam, as I mentioned earlier, you will be relaxed on the day of the exam. So I hope, if you are yet to start preparations, I hope you will start at least now, because once the upcoming week is done and dusted, you just have 2 weeks at your disposal, which is going to make your life extremely tough, because within 2 weeks, if you are to conduct your preparations, you have to master 3 mock exams per week, which is going to be tough, especially if you are not into full-time studies. So if you are not a full-timer, if you're working somewhere, or if you're running your own business, it is essential that you start your preparations in the upcoming week. If not, you are going to struggle a lot, and then you'd have to repeat this examination. When repeating this exam, you will have to deal with add-ons which are going to impact you, because the syllabus is deemed to change. Some add-ons are coming in concerning the exams happening in May 2026. And on top of that, you'd have to conduct your preparations based on a totally new pre-seen document. So everything's going to be hectic. So it's better to avoid a new pre-seen, avoid the add-ons, and pass this once and for all in the upcoming exams happening in February. In order for you to achieve this, you have to stick to the study plan, master each mock exam by adhering to a 3-step process. So you do not have a lot of time at your disposal. That's why you have to at least start next week. If not, you are going to struggle a lot. If you struggle before the exam, you are going to struggle on the day of the exam. So that is why we are sharing these study plans with you, with the intention of pushing you towards sticking to the study plan. Because if you stick to the study plan, you need not worry about syllabus coverage, need not worry about theoretical knowledge, and need not worry about application. We have covered all these things. Your job is to spend some time to revise, focused on each mock exam. And when it comes to revision, things are easy, because we have shared the answer plans with you. So it's simply a matter of trying to replicate TCS's answer plans when you are redeveloping your own answer plans after watching the master classes concerning each mock exam. So I hope you will stick to this 3-step process. I'm going to share this document with you after this session via the WhatsApp group, especially focused on those who are still contemplating about whether to start or when to start and what to do in the upcoming three weeks. So I'm going to, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to share this document with you. All right, so that's our 3-week plan. And having said that, let me quickly remind you of what we offer at TCS before I take you to the E3 Masterclass. So I'm on the SCS page. If you are yet to create a free user account, click on this button. Once you have created a free account, you gain access to our student dashboard. So click on this button and then click on My Courses. In front of SCS Free, you would see an Access Content button. Click on it, and then via the Videos tab, you can gain access to the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops we conduct. If you missed out on last week's workshop, it's essential that you watch the recorded version, which can be accessed via the student dashboard, in which I've highlighted common reasons which leads to a failure, and focused on each problem. I've highlighted what you need to avoid them. And also I've taught you the answering technique, which was already taught in the third webinar. I taught you answering and time management techniques once more in last week's workshop. And also I've conducted a P3 masterclass directing your attention towards a question tied to updating, or how to update the risk register, which is definitely going to be tested at your exam. So if you missed it, please go watch the recorded version. And via the study material tab, you'd gain access to the pre-seen mind map, as well as the answer plan of mock exam 1. Via the mocks tab, you'd gain access to the questions and suggested answers of mock exam 1. And via the exams tab, you have the opportunity of attempting mock number 1 under exam conditions. This is a full 3-hour mock exam. You can attempt this under exam conditions via TCS's exam platform, which is the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system on which you'd attempt your real examination. So make use of these free resources by clicking on this button. And if you are yet to create, if you are interested in investing on our paid content, click on this button and check the sample material before you do so. And if you are yet to join our SCS WhatsApp group, click on this button and join it. Via this group, we will constantly keep you guys reminded of the weekly webinar and workshop commencement dates and times. And at the same time, if you have any questions, you can get them answered instantaneously via this SCS WhatsApp group. And talking about what we offer 2 packages, the Essential course and the Premium course. The Essential course is designed for those who have completed their OTQs, or those who are coming through the traditional route. So since you have completed your OTQs, you have already learned theory. When it comes to conducting preparations, it's simply a matter of taking steps to practice your application skills or improve your application skills. So under the Essential course, you'd gain access to the recordings of all webinars and workshops, 6 mock exams with suggested answers. Although this says 6 mock exams, you already have access to 7 mock exams with suggested answers. And when developing these 7 mocks, we have made sure to cover all syllabus areas. That's why you'd see 63 subtasks in total covered within these 7 mock exams. You will also gain access to pre-seen analysis videos. So simply watch these videos to gain an in-depth understanding of the internals and externals of your chosen company, which is Cewmlator. Then you'd also gain access to the annotated pre-seen industry and financial analysis slides. Let me quickly show you what these resources look like. So this is the annotated pre-seen. As you can see, we have come up with annotations with the prime objective of summarizing the entire pre-seen. Also, we have conducted our own analysis and highlighted probable exam scenarios which can be tested. And when developing our mock exams, we have considered the same probable exam scenarios within our mock exams to make sure that you are conducting preparations based on pre-seen specific mock exams. And also, we have evaluated the financial statements. So we have evaluated the SOPL, the SOFP, as well as the statement of changes in equity. Also, most importantly, at this stage, you need to know your ratios. We have conducted a ratio analysis, thereby comparing your performance against the closest competitor atom, so that easily you can figure out the financial standing of your chosen company relative to its closest competitor. And also, we have developed a set of industry analysis slides So you need not waste time to evaluate the industry. We have already done it for you. So these set of slides are divided into 4 main parts. In the first part, we have defined the industry. In the second and the third parts, we have mentioned about what impacts your industry and what happens and what could happen in the future, which will impact the industry both adversely and negatively. And also, finally, considering 2 real life companies, we have explained what these 2 companies go through when operating within your chosen industry. So these are the type of resources on offer if you opt for the essential course. And also you'd gain access to the top 20 likely issue slides, which indicate the most probable scenarios which can be tested at the exam. The case study familiarization kit will ensure that you gain an in-depth understanding of the technicalities behind the SCS exam. You will also gain access to a tutor managed live chat and OTQ revision cards. So after attempting each mock exam, if you feel that you had forgotten a certain conceptual element, simply read through the OTQ revision cards in a jiffy. You are in a position to brush up your knowledge rather than having to waste a lot of time to go through your past notes or bulky study texts. So the essential course is priced at £299. And talking about the premium course comes with a pass guarantee and is focused on students who are coming through the exemption routes and those who had failed the exam previously. So both these sets of students have the same problem. There are gaps in theory knowledge and issues with application. So with the intention of teaching you all conceptual elements which can be tested at the exam, along with application, we have included some additional resources under the premium course on top of what appears under the essential course. So under premium, you would gain access to the online mock exam platform on which you can attempt all mocks under exam conditions, which is the best way to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. You will also gain access to answer plans of all mock exams. So you are going to see what answer plans look like in a little while, because I'm going to conduct the masterclass based on the answer plans which we have developed for mock number 7. And these answer plans, when you have access to these answer plans, you can clearly see how to structure your answers, what type of points you should include, the number of points you should include, and how to tackle each syllabus area, which will ensure that you will significantly improve your understanding of application. So the best approach when it comes to conduct revision is to develop answer plans. So when you have access to our answer plans, your job is to replicate TCS's answer plans when conducting your revision, which is the best way to ensure that you understand how to deal with quality. Because if you develop high quality answers, then you are going to get extremely good marks at your exam. You'd also gain access to 15 masterclasses in total, which are focused on mocks 2 to 6, mock 1 and 7. The masterclasses are covered in the free webinars and workshops. So from mocks 2 to 6, you have access to masterclasses which are 100% aligned with the mocks which we have developed. And in each masterclass, the objective is to, whilst teaching you the logic behind each answer, teach you the conceptual elements covered, and at the same time, teach you how to deal with application. And also, you'd receive one-on-one tutor feedback on mocks, on 2 mock exams, namely mocks 3 and 5. And this is a type of feedback on offer at TCS. As you can see, this student has totally missed the first section. So I've mentioned it in here. And beyond that point, we have evaluated each and every point with the prime intention of highlighting shortcomings, because the objective of seeking this type of feedback is to really understand your shortcomings, because when you understand your shortcomings, you can take steps to overcome them when conducting revision. So these are type of feedback on offer. And at the very end, we have indicated mark allocations on a subtask by subtask basis. We have also indicated the success rate. By looking at the yellow highlighted subtasks, you can easily understand the subtasks in which your performance was substandard, and you have to spend a considerable amount of time focused on these subtasks when you are redeveloping answer plans or when you are conducting revision. So although this student ended up scoring just 13 marks for this mock exam, at the real exam ended up scoring 90 plus, simply by sticking to the 3-step approach. Because when you are attempting mocks under exam conditions, you will commit a lot of mistakes. You will be clueless of how to deal with certain syllabus areas. That's totally fine. Try to give your best shot. When you receive tutor feedback, you might get extremely low marks, but all these problems, all these issues can be fixed when you take steps to watch master classes and conduct revision based on the same sections which you viewed in the master classes. So you might struggle when attempting mocks. That's totally fine. Stick to the process, stick to the 3-step approach, then you will master each mock exam. When you take steps to master each mock exam, you are going to score 90 plus marks easily at your real examination. So when you have access to all these resources, you will pass for sure. That's why we are providing a pass guarantee. So if you invest on the premium course and end up failing, you will gain access to the premium content in your subsequent sitting free of charge. However, in order to claim the pass guarantee, you need to put in a lot of effort. You need to stick to our study plan. If you stick to our study plan, you are easily in a position to, even if you partially stick to our study plan, you are in a position to easily score 70 to 79. So if you fail scoring 70 to 79 marks, you are going to gain access to the premium content in your subsequent sitting free of charge. And the premium course is priced at £599, which can be paid in 2 installments of £299 each. Or if you opt to pay in full, you will save £100. If so, the price is just £499. So I hope you will start your preparations right now. As I mentioned earlier, you just have 3.5 weeks at your disposal. You have to leave the exam week for revision. So you have to really start this week onwards. You only have 3 weeks at your disposal. And within these within each of these weeks, you have to master 2 mock exams per week. If not, you are going to struggle at your exam. So you do not have time. It's essential that you start right now without worrying a week later. All right. So that's what we offer. Having said that, I'm going to direct your attention towards the masterclass concerning your E3 syllabus. All right, so before I conduct the masterclass, I want to direct your attention towards the syllabus elements which you need to be conversant with when conducting your preparations for the upcoming SCS exam. So I'm going to direct your attention towards what is contained within your E3 syllabus, because today's masterclass or workshop is dedicated towards your E3 syllabus. So first things first, everything to do with strategy evaluation and formulation can be tested at the exam. As you know, in the E3 syllabus, the rational planning model is explained in depth. So each of the elements which are contained within the rational planning model are tested at your examination. So you should have the capability of evaluating a certain strategic option considering the vision, mission, and values of Cewmlator. So in order to conduct this type of an evaluation, it is essential that you gain an in-depth understanding of the current vision, mission, and values of your chosen company, which is highlighted within the pre-scene. And on top of that, you should have the capability of understanding whether there are any shortcomings or whether we can improve the current vision, mission, and values of your chosen company. So that's exactly what you'd understand if you gain access to our annotated pre-scene, because as you can see, we have mentioned the mission, vision, and values of your chosen company, but we have also conducted an overall analysis mentioning major shortcomings, because there's no indication of other type of stakeholders we are dealing with at the moment within our vision, mission, and value statements. There is no indication of safety and reliability, because it is essential that we ensure safety when our cars are driven, and at the same time when we are manufacturing our vehicles as well as batteries. And there is no mention of collaborations. We are collaborating with a lot of stakeholders, both locally and internationally, but there is no mention of it. And also, in terms of achieving real sustainability, we have to implement real action, but it appears that we are vague in terms of our sustainability understanding, especially given the fact that the batteries within our vehicles degrade degrade after 8 years, which indicates the fact that we are actually not producing something which is sustainable. Because if our products can only be used for something like 8 years compared to a combustion engine vehicle or an internal combustion engine or an ICE vehicle, then definitely our product is the least sustainable option in the market. All right, so these type of issues we have highlighted. So you need to gain a similar type of understanding to deal with questions tied to evaluating strategic options, considering the vision, mission, and values of your chosen company. And also, definitely, there is going to be a scenario which is tied to a diversification. It could be some type of vertical integration. It could be backward or forward vertical integration, or it could be a situation where we are entering a totally new market or doing something which we didn't do before. So you have to be conversant with scenarios and therefore questions tied to us pursuing vertical integration or us entering a totally new market. And also you should know how to evaluate various different options when we have the opportunity of purchasing options. You should have the capability of evaluating each option so that the board members can decide on which option we should pursue. Also, there could be a scenario tied to us acquiring a business. It could be a small company. It could be a quoted company. You never know. So focused when we are opting for any type of acquisition, it could be a small company, it could be a large company, you should have the capability of evaluating such an acquisition drive. So your knowledge concerning acquisition evaluation will definitely be tested at the exam. And also you should know the differences between organic and inorganic growth. Both these elements or one single element can be tested at the examination, because whenever a company wants to grow, a company can opt for organic growth, which is slow paths towards growth, in which companies are trying to grow on their own, utilizing its internal capabilities. Whereas inorganic growth is a situation where we go for some type of an acquisition. So with the intention of expanding our market share, with the intention of growing our sales, we can acquire another company rather than trying to do everything on our own. Or we can partner up with another company or a stakeholder such as the government. So these type of initiatives are considered as inorganic growth methods. So you should know the difference between organic and inorganic growth, and you should have the capability of evaluating the pros and cons of both organic versus inorganic growth. So as I mentioned earlier, when opting for inorganic growth, it could be as acquiring a company or going for a PPP or private public partnerships, a partnership with local governments, because there's a hint provided by the examiner towards the news articles which appear within your pre-scene. There's a hint about local governments being sluggish when it comes to setting up charging points. So this is a situation where we can go for PPP, share the costs so that local governments will be interested in putting up charging points, because if we do not put up charging points, the demand for our vehicles are not going to increase. So if you want to push the demand for electric vehicles, it's essential that we take steps to set up charging points. So rather than doing it on our own in an organic manner, we can go down the inorganic route, thereby either acquiring a charging provider or going for PPPs with local governments. So we have covered all these three angles within one of our mock exams. Also, you should know what an emergent approach to strategy formulation is. So as I mentioned earlier, the 90% of your E3 syllabus is focused on strategy evaluation and formulation, or the rational planning model. So that's one method of arriving at strategies. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have something called the emergent strategy to strategy formulation. So a rational approach is a situation where you take a lot of time to plan, because you have to look at various different elements. So the rational planning model is adopted by companies which are at the maturity stage of their growth, or which are operating in stable business environments. However, if you look at companies which are operating in dynamic business environments, if you look at companies which are still at the growth stage, then these type of companies sometimes utilize something called the emergent approach to strategy formulation. So your company, Cewmlator, is one such entity, because Cewmlator is still growing, and at the same time, our business environment is ever changing. So when this is the case, rather than sticking to a rational approach to strategy formulation, it makes sense to stick to the emergent approach to strategy formulation. So you should have a sound understanding of both these methods, the rational planning model as well as the emergent planning model. So both these elements are covered within our mocks. And also you should know how to deal with disclosure legislation, because as I mentioned earlier, the industry is ever changing. Why is this the case? Because customer demands are ever changing, and at the same time, there's a lot of regulations impacting the vehicle market. So the regulations are poised to change considerably in the future, especially forcing in terms of forcing companies to achieve real sustainability. So battery electric vehicles or BEV manufacturers always say that BEVs are the sustainable product in the market, which is actually not the case, because when it comes to you driving an electric vehicle, yes, there aren't any emissions because you are utilizing electricity as an energy. But when you are manufacturing the vehicle, especially tied to manufacturing the batteries, there's a lot of carbon emissions because you have to mine lithium, cobalt, and nickel, which is highly toxic and at the same time carries a lot of emissions. So if you compare between an ICE and a BEV, when a BEV is driven, yes, there aren't any emissions. However, when you are manufacturing a BEV, it takes up all the emissions which an ICE vehicle would emit within 10 years. So both these vehicles are actually harming the environment. Both ICE and BEV are harming the environment. So, just because we say that we are a sustainable alternative, it is not fact. When this is the case, definitely legislations are going to impact us. So we should know how to deal with these disclosures, which might impact us in the future. So previously, I was talking about the syllabus, which is the SCS syllabus changing, focused on exams happening in May 2026, and I was talking about some add-ons, and these add-ons are primarily concerned with sustainability. So if the CIMA syllabus is changing, definitely the legislation is going to change. So that is why I've never seen a sustainability report being included within any of the previous pre-scenes, but this time's pre-scene, which is based on Cewmlator, if you had gone through the pre-scene already, you know for a fact that there's a sustainability report, which indicates the fact that sustainability is going to be clearly tested at your examination. So definitely there will be a scenario tied to legislation changing. If legislation is changing, we have to fall in line with it. So you should know how to deal with these changes by disclosing about how we have taken steps to adhere to them to our stakeholders. So knowledge concerning disclosure legislation will be tested. And also, being a quoted company, our prime objective should be to address stakeholder needs, make sure that we satisfy the needs of our shareholders. So whenever there are shareholder concerns, it could be vague, it could be real, irrespective of the shareholder concerns or the type of shareholder concerns. Us, Cewmlator as a company is supposed to address all these needs as and when necessary, and make sure that we keep our shareholders informed of what we intend to achieve in the future. So you should know how to deal with shareholder concerns, because if we do not address these concerns, it could be vague. Still, if we do not address these concerns, it will impact our share price adversely. So in order to maintain the share price, there's a way in which we should deal with shareholders. So all these things are covered within our mocks. And also, you should know how to deal with a share price drop. Right after a share price drop, there are certain things which we need to achieve as decision makers within your chosen company. And at the same time, a day or two after a share price drop, there are certain things which we need to achieve. So both these elements concerning instantaneous action to react to a share price drop, and at the same time what to do in 2 or 3 days after a share price drop, all these both these two elements are covered within our mock exams. And also you have to be conversant with various different tools which are used to evaluate strategic options. So definitely the examiner is going to test any of these tools. So you should know how to conduct competitor analysis, as well as when it comes to evaluating strategies. Two tools can be utilized, the scenario planning as well as essay frameworks. So you should know when and where you are supposed to utilize your knowledge concerning the scenario planning framework or the SAF framework. So under scenario planning, you are supposed to consider three options. So option number one is a best case scenario. You are supposed to think that everything's going to be rosy, and based on that you should develop a scenario. Then the second scenario which you should consider is uh, the worst case scenario. Assuming that everything's going to be extremely bad for us, you have to develop an evaluation. And then the third scenario is the most probable scenario or the most practical scenario. So you have to think about, you should not think about everything being extremely good or everything being extremely bad. You have to select the middle path, which is a combination of good and bad, or the most practical situation. So when you feed this type of information to the decision makers, they will finalize the decision, because as a senior finance manager, your job is not to finalize a decision, but to assist decision makers, because it's the board members based on evaluations who would end up finalizing a decision. So you should be conversant with what is highlighted within the scenario planning framework and how you should apply it when developing your answers. And similarly, there could be another set of questions which are intended to test your knowledge concerning the SAF framework, as you know, under suitability. So when evaluating a certain strategic option under suitability, you are supposed to look at whether a certain strategic option is aligned with our vision, mission, values, and the existing business model. And under acceptability, you are supposed to look at whether a certain strategic or how a certain strategic initiative is going to impact our major stakeholders, how our stakeholders are going to react to what we are supposed to do in the future. And under feasibility, you are supposed to look at both financial and non-financial feasibility of a certain project or a strategic initiative which we intend to implement within our company. So in a nutshell, under feasibility, you should have the capability of evaluating whether we have enough money to go ahead with the project, or whether we have the necessary resources, because when you consider resources, you should not just look at the finances, you should look at the non-financial elements as well. So these elements should be covered in your answer. So these are the elements which can be tested under strategy evaluation and formulation. And also your knowledge concerning board responsibilities will be tested as well. And I'm going to direct your attention towards question tied to board responsibilities, which is essentially tied to a board restructure. So when we are dealing with various different systems, we might be exposed to any type of incompatibilities within the various different systems which are in use within our company. Or it could be a situation where we acquire a company and we are trying to merge the two systems used within our own company as well as the acquired companies. When trying to do so, we might struggle, we might face issues. So you, as a board member, as a senior finance manager who is actually assisting a board member, you should have the capability to determine what to do in terms of managing incompatible systems. And also you should have a good understanding of how to manage the internal business environment. So if you are to do this, you need to gain a good understanding of the existing business model. And when we are trying to do something new, you should know how these new initiatives are going to impact our existing business model. Also, there could be a situation, especially when we are trying to do something new, our business ecosystem might change. Definitely, business ecosystem related knowledge will be tested at the exam. This is an area in which students end up scoring extremely low marks because they have never seen a question tied to business ecosystem. Therefore, they do not know how business ecosystem related knowledge can be tested at the exam. We have included it within our mock exams. then you will realize how to deal with question tied to business ecosystem. So if you are to address a question, or if you are to come up with the best type of answers concerning a question tied to business ecosystem, first things first, you need to gain a sound understanding of the current business ecosystem. If not, if you are clueless of the current business ecosystem of your chosen company, you are not in a position to develop a successful answer. Okay, so these elements are tested, and whenever we are trying to do something new, we might face resistance to change. So you should know how to deal with these various different parties who are resisting change. So your knowledge concerning change management will be tested. Also, when we are trying to do something new, we have to deal with various different stakeholder needs. We have to make sure that we manage each type of stakeholder. So your knowledge concerning the Mendelow's matrix, or the tool which is used to manage stakeholders, will be tested. And you should also know how to conduct disciplinary action. There's a way in which within a company you are supposed to conduct disciplinary action, because you should not conduct disciplinary action which will end up demotivating employees. And at the same time, when conducting disciplinary action, you have to think about ethics, or you're conducting this disciplinary action in the most ethical manner. So these elements can be tested at your exam, and you should know how or what to look at when it comes to appointing a risk manager, the rationale behind such an appointment, and the type of responsibilities a risk manager should carry out. And also, your knowledge concerning appointing a totally new board committee might be tested at the examination, because if you look at the current composition of board committees, there are 4 different committees within our company. And one of the committees is termed CSR and risk. So we have combined both CSR and risk within one single committee, which might which I think is overburdening committee members, because it's better, since we say that we believe in sustainability, we try to achieve real sustainability, then we should not only focus on CSR, because you should transcend CSR to achieve real sustainability. So I think that it's better to appoint a separate committee which is supposed to look into sustainability related initiatives, and leave the risk committee to focus on risk identification, risk evaluation, and risk mitigation strategies. All right, so that's why there could be a situation where you are supposed to suggest as to how to appoint a board committee. So there could be a situation where the company is trying to appoint a sustainability committee. So when this is the case, there are certain points which you need to consider, certain angles which you need to consider when developing your answers. And also, your knowledge concerning corporate governance and ethics will be tested. So a board is supposed to be accountable to all stakeholders, especially the shareholders. So your knowledge concerning board accountability will be tested. And when remunerating directors, there's a way in which we should do it, because the board members themselves cannot determine their own salaries. It should go through the remuneration committee as per corporate governance based practices. So be prepared to evaluate these type of questions or these type of issues. And also, there's a certain way in which we should restructure the board, certain elements which we need to cover when it comes to when opting for a board restructure. So I'm going to direct your attention towards a question tied to restructuring the board in today's session. And also, when it comes to appointing directors, it could be executive directors or non-executive directors. There's a way in which you are supposed to do it to fall in line with corporate governance based practices. And both these angles tied to appointing an executive director versus appointing a non-executive director can be tested at your exam. And similarly, there's a way in which we should deal with board dismissals as well. So when we are dismissing a director, if we do not tackle the situation properly, or if we do not dismiss a director in an ethical manner, falling in line with corporate governance based practices, then it will impact our reputation adversely. When our reputation is adversely impacted, shareholders will be dissatisfied. When this is the case, our share price will drop. So we should avoid a share price drop. We should avoid dissatisfying our shareholders with this in mind, when dismissing a director, we have to make sure that we are upholding corporate governance best practices and we do it in the most ethical manner. So these elements will be tested, and your knowledge concerning ethics and corporate governance will be tested at the exam. So be prepared to evaluate the chairman's or any other board members' actions in terms of ethics and corporate governance. You should have the capability of evaluating whether board actions fall in line with corporate governance best practice, or whether board decisions or board actions are ethical at all times. And also, your knowledge concerning lobbying will be tested at the exam. It is clearly mentioned that we have one of our board members was a previous politician. So, and when the legal environment is ever changing, definitely a company such as us, which is at the growth stage of our life cycle, and at the same time, which is operating in a dynamic business environment, will definitely opt for lobbying. When we are opting for lobbying, there's a way in which you should conduct it, because if we do something unethical, it is going to impact our reputation and share price adversely. So in order to avoid these things, you should conduct lobbying in the most ethical manner. So you should know how to conduct lobbying in the most ethical manner. And also the ethics tied to sustainability disclosures, because as I mentioned earlier, we are marketing our products as sustainable. Within our mission, vision, and values, we have mentioned that we believe in sustainability, but actually speaking, we are not manufacturing sustainable vehicles, because if our vehicles are sustainable, they should be in use for 15-20 years, but that is not the case. Our vehicles can only be used for 8 years. After that, it goes to landfill, because when it comes to recycling these vehicles, it is extremely costly, and it relies on toxic chemicals. So if we try to recycle these vehicles, it will end up emitting a lot of carbon, and at the same time, it will end up destroying the environment. So since we are actually not being sustainable, although this is the case, when we market ourselves as a sustainable company, our ethical behavior comes into question. So this angle or this argument can be tested at your exam, and therefore you should be ready to conduct an evaluation concerning our sustainability standing or our sustainability marketing concerning the COPPI framework, or the confidentiality, objectivity, professional competence and due care, professional behavior and integrity framework. All right, so that's what is contained within your E3 syllabus. Having said that, let's move to the masterclass, which is focused on a question tied to board restructuring. Okay, so as you know, you are supposed to stick to these 5 steps when developing your answer plans. I've explained all these things in depth in the 3rd webinar. If you missed it, please go watch the recorded version, which is accessible via our student dashboard and via our YouTube handle. So the first step is to read through the scenario within just 5 to 7 minutes. If you're struggling to do so, you have to take steps to practice your reading by dedicating 30 to 60 minutes of your time on a daily basis to read anything which you have access to. So you have to practice reading, which will enable you to read through the entire scenario within just 5 to 7 minutes. If not, you are going to struggle to manage your time. So after you have read through the scenario, you are supposed to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. The prime objective of doing this is to gain a clear understanding of each requirement, because when you are taking steps to summarize the requirement, you are trying to get to the root of each requirement. When this is the case, when you have, you will gain a clear understanding, and when you have a clear understanding of each requirement, you will end up developing an answer which is 100% aligned with your requirement. So you are supposed to simplify each requirement before you develop the answer plan. And then you should focus your attention towards developing headings and subheadings. As I've mentioned in the previous webinars and workshops, if there are 3 subtasks within a section, then in your answer, there should be 3 main headings, and each main heading should be in bold and underlined format. And if you want to further fraction out your answer within a certain subtask, you are welcome to use subheadings, and subheadings should be in bold format. And once you have determined the headings and subheadings, then you should focus your attention towards developing the answer plan by taking 30 minutes of your time. So within these 30 minutes, you are supposed to develop the answer plan focused on all subtasks which appear within a section. So if within a certain section, if there are 2 subtasks, within 30 minutes, you should have the capability of developing 2 answer plans. And if there are 3 subtasks, within 30 minutes, you should have the capability of developing 3 answer plans. So you should develop answer plans focused on all subtasks which are contained within a section within 30 minutes. And before you develop the answer plan, you should understand how many points you should include within your answer. This can be understood by the weightages provided. So in a little while, I'm going to explain how you should do these calculations and easily determine how many points you should include under each subtask. When you do so, you are taking steps to develop answers which are totally aligned with mark allocations. Therefore, your answers are not going to be too long or too short. All right. So once you have finalized everything, then you should proceed towards developing the answer plan. And when it comes to developing the answer plan, you need to develop something like this: an answer structure. This is where you are supposed to plan what you should include in your answer. The examiner wants you to spend some time to plan. So it's essential. That's why it's essential for you to practice it. Practice this technique under exam conditions when attempting our mock exams. So after you have developed the answer plan, then your final step within each section is to expand the answer plan in paragraph form. So based on the number of points you have included in your answer plan, you need to develop the same number of points in paragraph form. So if you plan to include 7 points in your answer plan, then in your final answer, there should be 7 different paragraphs. And in order to expand your answer plan, you can take 20 to 25 minutes towards the final part, or the final 20 to 25 minutes of each section. You should dedicate your effort towards expanding the answer plan. So these are the steps which you need to adhere to, which will ensure that you are spending some time to plan your answer. Therefore, making sure that you are achieving quality, because the examiner is not looking at the number of words you have typed. The examiner is not looking at quantity, but the examiner is looking at quality. So it's essential that you stick to this answering technique, because if you do so, whilst achieving quality, you are also managing time. So both these techniques, answering and time management, go hand in hand. So you have to practice these 2 techniques whenever you are attempting a mock exam under exam conditions, because just because you know these techniques, you are not in a position to implement them for the first time at your real examination in a successful manner. All right, so that's your answering technique. So let's move to the masterclass. So I'm going to direct your attention towards mock number 7, section number 2, subtask C. Sorry, I've made a blunder here. This should be subtask C. All right, so 2 weeks have passed. Cewmlator's board is discussing about the technicalities involved with acquiring PL. So this is tied to what we discussed in previous week as well, because I direct your attention towards the second subtask of the same section. So as per what I highlighted in the previous week, this entire mock exam is focused on a scenario in which Cewmlator intends to acquire PL, or Power Lithium, a lithium mining company. So we are thinking in terms of acquiring a lithium mining company, because we have our own battery manufacturing plant. And if we opt for an acquisition of a lithium mining company, then we are pursuing vertical backward integration. When we opt for vertical backward integration, then there's going to be a lot of benefits for us. I'm not going to discuss all these benefits, because that's irrelevant to this question at hand. So for now, what you need to understand is the fact that we are discussing about the technicalities involved with acquiring Power Lithium, which is a lithium mining company. The finance director meets you and hands you an excerpt from board meeting minutes. Please go through this, see reference material. I need your assistance concerning the following areas. All right, so let's read through the reference material. As part of the due diligence on the proposed acquisition of Power Lithium, I want to raise a potential red flag. A well-known EV manufacturer in Westland recently suffered a significant data breach originating from one of its upstream suppliers. The breach exposed sensitive information, including battery design, charging software algorithms, confidential customer analytics, and employee access credentials to various internal systems. The incident was traced back to poor cybersecurity controls at the supplier, including weak encryption and outdated firewalls. So one of the players, lithium mining companies within this industry, not Power Lithium, but some other company, has faced a data breach which originated from one of its suppliers. Given that Cewmlator shares high-level demand forecasts, procurement strategies, and occasionally battery design parameters with key lithium suppliers, I'm concerned that similar vulnerabilities at PL could pose major risks post-acquisition. So the board is contemplating about the type of risks we might encounter when trying to acquire Power Lithium, a lithium mining company. And if the acquisition goes ahead, the board structure will surely have to change. So the board has identified the fact that, okay, we are exposed to a certain set of risks if we go down this route and acquire Power Lithium. On top of that, if we acquire Power Lithium, our board structure might have to change. That's what the board is telling you. So what is your role? Your job is to explain what factors should Cewmlator consider when designing a new board structure. Okay, so as per our answering technique, I've read through the scenario. I didn't have time to take you through the read through the. I actually did. I actually read through the entire scenario. I just skipped the two requirements, but all the other information I read within just 2 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. So you should have the capability of reading through the entire scenario within just 5 to 7 minutes. Once you're done with this, the second step is to reiterate the requirement in your own words in a simple manner. So let's look at the requirement. What factors should Cewmlator consider when designing a new board structure? I've simplified it as designing a new board structure. So you are supposed to highlight what we should include or what we should consider rather when it comes to designing a new board structure. All right, so that's the second step. And the third step is to develop headings and subheadings. So I've developed a heading which goes as board restructuring, which is in bold and underlined format. So within this subtask, I've further factioned out my answer by using subheadings which are in bold format. So always remember, do not number or name your tasks. Do not say task number 2, task number 3, and whatnot. Simply develop a main heading per subtask. That's exactly what you can see in here. So that is done. Then you should direct your attention towards developing the answer plan within 30 minutes. Before you develop the answer plan, you need to understand how many points you should include in each and every subtask. And that can be determined by looking at the weightage provided. So the weightage provided for this subtask, the final subtask is 20%. So as you know, each section carry 50 marks in total. So 20% of 50 marks come up to 10 marks in total. So if you come up with a highly successful answer, then you are going to score 10 marks for the final subtask. Once you have understood the mark allocations, then you can easily understand how many points you should include within subtask C. So each valid point carry 2 or 3 marks. So in order to understand how many points you should cover within this subtask, divide 10 by 3 and again divide 10 by 2. So when you divide 10 by 3, you get an answer which is 3. When you divide 10 by 2, you get an answer which is 5. So if you include 3 to 5 valid points within this answer, you are going to get full marks. So based on the weightages, we worked out mark allocations. Based on the mark allocations, we worked out how many points you should include in your answer. When you adhere to this methodology, you are making sure to develop answers which are totally aligned with mark allocations. Therefore, your answers are not going to be too long or too short. All right, so now you know how many points you should include. Then you should direct your attention towards developing the answer plan. So let me scroll down and explain how to deal with this type of a question and therefore how to structure your answer. All right. So I've started by, including a main heading, which is in bold and underlined format, which goes as, or which reads as rather, board restructuring. So these are questions tied to board restructuring. So first things first, let's learn the theory behind board restructures, because there's a way in which we should carry out a board restructure. When carrying out a board restructure, we need to focus on various different angles. So first, I'm going to teach you the theoretical element and then direct your attention towards how to deal with application. So the objective of restructuring a board is to enhance board capabilities. So we should not blindly restructure a board just because the shareholders are asking us to do it, or just because our chairman or some other set of board members are asking for restructure. The prime objective of a board restructure is to enhance board capabilities. Because if you look at this question, we are trying to acquire a lithium mining company. We have never been involved with lithium mining operations. Up until now, we were, purchasing our lithium from suppliers, but we are trying to do something new for the first time. When this is the case, it is essential that we think in terms of how we can improve leadership. Because when we are trying to do something new, definitely we are going to face a lot of risks. It is essential that we have the capability within the board which enables us to identify the risks and therefore come up with appropriate mitigatory strategies. If not, when we encounter these risks, we will be shell-shocked. So that's why it's essential that we restructure the board with the intention of enhancing board capabilities, because if we take steps to enhance board capabilities, then we are in a position to effectively identify and manage risks when we are trying to do something for the first time. Okay, so that's the objective. And when opting for a board restructure, we should take steps to retain top talent. So when we acquire power lithium, then there could be a situation that we involve certain high-level decision makers from within power lithium and include them within our board. However, when doing so, we have to take steps to ensure that out of the current board members, the most capable and prominent board members are kept intact without kicking them out blindly. So we should retain top talent. And at the same time, when we are restructuring a board, we have to think in terms of whether we are falling in line with corporate governance best practices. It's essential because corporate governance best practices give us an indication of how companies should be managed and run with the intention of achieving future success. Especially given the fact that we are a quoted company, we should always think about the betterment of our shareholders. So if we are to think about the betterment of our shareholders, we have to fall in line with corporate governance best practices as per the Combined Code of Corporate Governance, which is practiced in the UK. So when we are going for a board restructure, we have to think in terms of whether we are aligning ourselves with corporate governance best practices. Similarly, whenever we are restructuring a board, we have to think in terms of how it might impact our existing committees, board committees as well. Because as you know, board committees comprise of a mix of executive and non-executive directors. So when we opt for a board restructure, this committee membership might be impacted. So that's why we have to think of how a restructure might impact our committees as well. And also, you have to think about action we need to take post-restructure. After we have restructured the board, there are certain elements which you should consider. So these are the actions which we should consider post-restructure. So if you have to get full marks, you should, if you cover these 5 points, then you will get full marks concerning a question tied to board restructuring. So now you have learned your theory. Then let's look at how you should deal with application. So as I mentioned earlier, we have to make sure to integrate talent. And with this in mind, when we are restructuring the board, we should retain the most talented executives. And we should consider retaining Power Lithium's founder. And when we are retaining this individual within our company as a decision maker, we can appoint this individual as a senior advisor or a non-executive director. I don't think that that Power Lithium's founder is going to be a majority shareholder. Therefore, there's no hard and fast rule which says that this individual should become an executive director. However, if we feel that we are totally clueless of how lithium mining operations work, and if we feel that there should be someone who is providing hands-on leadership concerning these initiatives, then we can appoint this founder as an executive director, or we can simply appoint this individual as a non-executive director, because there's no discussion of how we are going to deal with this initiative clearly within this section. I've just kept it open-ended. I've said that we can either appoint this individual as a non-executive director or appoint this individual as a senior advisor. So that's how we should deal with talent integration when restructuring. We have to retain top talent. And on top of that, I've also mentioned the possibility of us retaining PS or Power Lithium's founder. When doing so, I've mentioned the fact that we should appoint this individual as a senior advisor or a non-executive director. You can say that we can appoint this individual as an executive director as well, given the fact that we are moving into lithium for the first time, lithium mining for the first time. And also, whenever we are restructuring the board, as I mentioned earlier, the objective is to enhance board capabilities with the intention of ensuring that we have appropriate leadership within the company, which will ensure that we achieve future success. The board should be adequately skilled and staffed. And I've mentioned in the fact that our board members are skilled and experienced as per what is highlighted within your pre-scene document. This is how you score marks for pre-scene application. So until this point, I've never mentioned anything taken from the pre-scene. In this point, with the intention of adding some value to one of my arguments, I'm bringing in pre-scene info. That's the exact same way in which you should include pre-scene info in your answer. Blindly including pre-scene information is never going to get you any marks. All right. Always remember, you are operating in a real-life corporate environment. When doing so, when responding to an email which you receive from your superior, are you ever going to talk about what happens within your company unnecessarily? Are you ever going to talk about what happens within your industry unnecessarily? Unless and otherwise, with the intention of driving a point, you can bring in information, or you can include information about what we do and what happens within the industry. So that's the exact methodology which you can see in here. I'm saying that our board should be adequately skilled and staffed. And I'm also mentioning the fact that our board, existing board members are skilled appropriately. Why am I saying this? I simply cannot say that our board members are skilled. I'm backing up my argument by given the fact that our board members are skilled and experienced as per what's highlighted within the pre-scene. And also, it's essential, since our objective is to enhance board capabilities, it's essential that we conduct a skills audit before we restructure the board. Why should we conduct a skill audit? With the intention of assessing skill gaps of board members. And when we restructure the board, we can take steps to fix these knowledge gaps or fix these experience gaps. So if we feel that after acquiring Power Lithium, if we feel that none of our board members know anything to do with lithium mining, if so, there is going to be a leadership vacuum. If this is the case, we can appoint the founder of Power Lithium or any other individual as a director looking into mining operations. So that is why we are supposed to conduct a skills audit. This skills audit will highlight skill gaps within our business. Whenever we encounter skill gaps, if these are major skill gaps, then we can appoint executive directors to provide leadership covering these elements, thereby getting rid of these gaps, which will ensure future success of our company. And also, we have to think in terms of balancing the workload of our board members when opting for board restructure. Directors should not be overburdened, because if they are overburdened, then they won't have time to focus on or carry out their jobs in a responsible manner. So if they are overburdened with work, if our board members are supposed to look into various different things when providing leadership, then they cannot focus on one single element. So especially when we are trying to do something new, when we are opting to acquire a lithium mining company, if we feel that if we ask the existing board members to provide leadership to the newly acquired company as well, they might be overburdened, especially if they do not have any understanding of lithium mining operations. Then they'd have to spend some time to learn, and this is going to be a cumbersome and complex process, which is going to further strain the time which they are supposed to dedicate towards their providing leadership concerning their relevant area. So in order to avoid such a situation, in order to make sure that the directors are not overburdened when opting for a board restructure, we might have to appoint an executive director. And if things are not too serious, then we can proceed towards appointing a non-executive director. So if we feel that after conducting a skill audit, if we feel that the directors are overburdened, then we should create new board positions. And in terms of board composition, we should comply with corporate governance best practices. So as per the combined code of corporate governance, which is practiced in the UK, when appointing board members or forming a board, there should be a good balance between executive and non-executive directors. So as per corporate governance best practices, there should be an equal number of executive and non-executive directors. You cannot see this within our company because we have too many executive directors compared to non-executive directors, which creates an imbalance between execs and non-execs. Because as you know, shareholders are the owners of the company. Although this is the case, we have given the responsibility, handed over the responsibility of running the company to a set of directors who are known as executive directors. So these executive directors are supposed to run the company with shareholder interests in mind, but this is not always the case because the directors they are powerful because they have the power to run the business. When running the business, they can forget shareholder interests and try to fulfill their own personal interests. So that is why non-executive directors appear within a board, because the non-executive directors are supposed to represent shareholders within the board. If the executive directors are doing something wrong which goes against shareholder interests, then the non-executive directors have the power to call for an EGM or an extraordinary general meeting and inform the shareholders of what the executive directors are up to. So the executive directors are supposed to run the business by providing leadership on a daily basis, whereas the executive directors are there to keep track of board performance. If something is going wrong, if something is going against shareholder interests, then it is the responsibility of non-executive directors to keep the shareholders informed about these wrongdoings. So that's why there should be an equal number of executive and non-executive directors, because if there are more executive directors compared to non-executive directors, then the executive directors are going to overpower the non-executive directors. If the executive directors are overpowering the NEDs, then it is not too good for shareholder interests. So that's why we should, when restructuring the board, we should take steps to make sure that there are an equal number of executive and non-executive directors. And also, as per corporate governance best practices, the chairperson and the CEO must remain separate, because the CEO is the head of the board or is supposed to provide leadership to all board members. The chairman is usually the largest shareholder. This is not always the case, but usually the chairman of a business is the largest shareholder. So this largest shareholder will try to always fulfill his or her needs without thinking about the needs of the rest of the shareholders. So as a quoted company, it is essential that there's a clear demarcation between between a CEO and a chairman. If not, the chairperson, with his or her interests in mind, will try to direct the company with the intention of fulfilling his or her needs at the cost of the other shareholders. So that is why there should be a clear separation between the chair and the CEO. The chairperson should not be able to provide leadership or manage the board. The board should be managed by a managing director or a CEO. The chairman should be a totally different individual who can sit within the board, but when there is a separate individual who is supposed to provide leadership to the other board members, then we can avoid undue bias and conflict of interest. So when we are restructuring the board, we should fall in line with corporate governance best practices. So these are the two angles which you need to consider. There should be equal number of execs and non-executive directors, as well as the chair and CEO must remain separate. Also, as I mentioned earlier, you have to think in terms of how this restructure might impact our committees. So the combined entity, if we go down the route of acquiring this company, the combined entity should have 4 committees: risk and CSR, remuneration, nomination, and audit. If so, we are falling in line with corporate governance best practices. And we have to think in terms of current shortcomings within our committees. Because if you look at the composition of our board committees, the non-executive chair sits in the audit committee, which should not be the case. As per corporate governance best practices, the audit committee should comprise of non-executive directors. The chairman should not be part and parcel of the audit committee, because the audit committee's responsibility is to make sure that there are sound controls within our company, and to also make sure that they appoint an internal audit department, and this internal audit department is doing their job properly to make sure that everyone within the company is complying with the controls which the audit committee has determined. So that's the prime responsibility. And when this is the case, when you have the chairman as part of the audit committee, it goes against corporate governance best practices, because as I mentioned earlier, the chairman should not have the power to direct the company in the way in which he or she wants to. Instead, we should think about the betterment of all shareholders. So that is why the non-executive chair should not be in the audit committee. This is the case if you look at Cewmlator. So when we go for a board restructure after acquiring this new company, we should make sure when we restructure our committees, we should make sure that we remove the non-executive chairperson from the audit committee. And also, we should take steps to make sure that independent non-executive directors lead and dominate each committee. So when you look at the audit committee, as per corporate governance best practices, all members should be independent non-executive directors. But when you look at the other 3 committees, remuneration, nomination, and risk, as well as CSR committees, a majority of the members should be non-executive directors. All right, so there's nothing wrong with this element concerning the current board committees, how they are structured. But, if we go for board restructure, if we get additional executive directors on the board, then it might impact the composition of board committees. If we, for instance, get rid of one of our non-executive directors and replace this individual with an executive director, then an individual who played a role within one of the committees is not available anymore. When this is the case, the executive directors might have a high level of power within these committees, and these committees are there to make sure that shareholder interests are fulfilled when it comes to board decision making. That's why you see these committees, because if you look at the remuneration committee is supposed to look into matters concerning directors or executive director compensation. The executive directors are not supposed to determine salaries on their own. Instead, it should go through the remuneration committee. That is why a majority should be independent non-executive directors who are supposed to represent shareholder interests within the board. Similarly, the nomination committee's responsibility is to nominate individuals to the board, especially when it comes to board restructure. So when it comes to nominating individuals, it should be handled by the nomination committee. If not, the executive directors can appoint their own kith and kin or their own friends to the board, which is not going to be too good for the shareholders, because then it will expose us to conflict of interest, and the board members will only think about their own interest rather than fulfilling the needs of all shareholders. So that's why whenever we go for a board restructure, or whenever we are appointing a new board member, it should be handled, the nomination process should be handled by non-executive directors. And that's why within the nomination committee, a majority should be independent non-executive directors who are supposed to represent shareholder interests within the board. All right. And also, as I mentioned earlier, if you look at the audit committee, all members should be independent non-executive directors, because if there's if the control environment is not too good, then it will impact the way in which our business or our company is run. Similarly, if you look at risk and CSR committees, these committee members are supposed to look at the risks, which we are exposed to, keep tabs about risks and keep updating the risk register, and at the same time look into corporate social responsibility or CSR initiatives as well. And a majority should be independent non-executive directors to make sure that risks are contained or managed appropriately, and we are taking steps to achieve real social responsibility. All right. So these are the elements which you need to consider when restructuring the committees. And also, it is essential that we form a temporary integration committee to oversee post-merger operational and cultural alignment, because when we, I don't know whether you have experienced this. I have experienced this personally in 2 companies in which I worked. When we acquire another company or when we go for a joint venture, 2 cultures, come to a clash, and this cultural clash is not too good for the operations of the combined entity. So that is why it's essential that we take steps, especially when it comes to restructuring the board. If we include some board members who used to work for Power Lithium within our combined entities board, there could be certain rifts when we form it. So that is why we have to oversee post-merger operational and cultural alignment. We have to see that there aren't any operational or cultural hiccups which impacts the combined entity's success. That is why I've suggested that it is prudent to form a temporary integration committee. This committee should not be in existence forever. For a short period of time, we can set up a committee with the prime intention of aligning operations, aligning cultures without any hiccups. And I also mentioned the fact that you have to think about action post restructure. So this is one such action. And forward steps are to conduct a post-acquisition governance assessment to identify the risks, cultural integration challenges, and structural gaps which we encountered. So I said that when it comes to restructuring a board, we have to look into all these points. And after we have restructured the board, we have to see whether we have tackled the situation in the most successful manner. That is why I'm saying that we should conduct a post-acquisition governance assessment. This will ensure that we, identify any type of risks which we should have identified but we didn't when restructuring the board, any type of cultural integration related challenges we encountered, and any type of structural gaps we encountered when restructuring the board. So it's better to learn from our mistakes, because when we conduct this type of governance assessment after restructuring the board, then we'd encounter or we'd identify what our mistakes are, and the learning gained by identifying these mistakes can be utilized to restructure a board in a better manner when we opt for a future board restructure. All right, so that's how you should structure your answer. So in a nutshell, I've spoken of the importance of retaining the most talented executives, and also if we retain PLs found, I've mentioned how we should do it. And also I've mentioned the objective of restructuring boards, which is to enhance board capabilities. And with this in mind, we have to conduct a skills audit, and a board restructure is necessary, especially in terms of balancing workload, especially when we are trying to do something new, when we are trying to move into lithium mining. We have not done it before. And also you should think in terms of how a board restructure impacts corporate governance best practice, as well as how such a restructure might impact our committees. And also I've mentioned the forward steps which we need to consider after we have restructured the board. All right, so that is your fourth step. And the final step is to expand the answer plan in paragraph form. So you have to expand all answer plans which are contained within a section within 20 to 25 minutes. So it is simply a matter of joining these points which you have included in your answer plan. So do not develop a separate answer plan and then develop a separate extended answer. Simply keep developing or keep connecting each of these points and develop your final answer. If you do so, you are not wasting time to, type the entire answer once more when it comes to expanding the answer. So your answer plan, when it comes to planning your answer, it should look something like this. However, your final answer should be in paragraph form. So that's exactly what you can see here. Per valid point, I've come up with a paragraph so that the marker can easily see how many points you have included in your answer. Then the marker can easily determine out of the points you have included which are accurate and which are inaccurate. All right, so this is what your final answer should look like. All right, so having said that, it brings us to the end of the masterclass. So I'm happy to say that we achieved an 84% pass rate in the previous exams, which happened in November 2025. And our highest score was Harold, who ended up scoring 116 marks when the pass mark was just 80. So you can achieve a similar feat if you stick to the study plan, which I focused your attention on at the inception of today's workshop. So having said that, if you have any questions, you can switch on your mic and talk or drop a message via the chat. Any questions, folks? Did you understand how to deal with a question tied to board restructuring? Did you understand the syllabus elements contained within the E3 syllabus? And did you understand what you're supposed to do in terms of preparations in the upcoming 3.5 weeks? Do you have any questions?
Yes, it's just in relation to.
Yes, please go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's just in relation to say the restructure of the board. Just in relation to both companies. So would they lose some of their board members? Say they don't PL, the new company doesn't bring all of its board members, and then Cewmlator would lose some of its board members. And I'd be concerned that the Cewmlator would lose some of its board members because they do have some very talented and skilled board members.
Okay, so and thank you for that question. So I don't think that you'd see a situation like this, especially when we are acquiring a company. So you have to think in a practical manner. We are acquiring a lithium mining company. So when we are acquiring another business, it's highly unlikely that the acquired parties board members will end up replacing our own board members. That is not going to be the case. Okay, there could be a situation where uh, a maximum of 2 board members might join our existing board, and even if it is the case, there would be just one single executive director and the other person might end up joining us as a non-executive director. So there won't be a situation where an acquired company ends up appointing their own board members by getting rid of the board members of Cewmlator, because always remember the fact that we are acquiring another company. We are not getting acquired by Power Lithium. Got it?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay. Anything else?
Just one other question. Is there a limit to the number of board of directors, say in any company?
No, no. You can have
No.
any amount of board members because, for instance, let's look at a conglomerate. A conglomerate has a lot of board members, given the fact that, they keep on acquiring various different companies to, increase their presence in various different markets. So when this is the case, if you want to be really successful, even after acquiring a company, you need to have some type of an individual who is providing leadership in this arena. So that is why if you look at conglomerates, you'll see multiple board members, especially executive directors, because you keep, restructuring the board as and when you acquire a company or as and when you enter a new market. I hope I'm clear. Did I address your concern, Anne? Okay, some questions have come through, and I hope I addressed your concern.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry, just one question, Nick.
mhm.
Who actually does the skill audit? You mentioned there about the skill audit. Who would carry that out?
Ideally, the nomination committee.
Okay.
Because as I mentioned earlier, the nomination committee's responsibility is to deal with board appointments when we are, getting rid of someone, or when we are restructuring the board. It should be handled by the nomination committee, and the nomination committee will not have the power to appoint board members. That's why their name goes as nomination committee, not board appointments committee. So the nomination committee, if we want to replace a board member or add new board members, they will, come up with various different arguments for a board appointment. They have to share these arguments with board members and get approval from board members. So the nomination committee ends up nominating individuals to the board, whereas the shareholders end up appointing these board members, or these individuals as per the suggestions made by the nomination committee. So the nominations are handled by the nomination committee, but board appointments are handled by shareholders, because shareholders are the owners of the company. I hope I understood your concern.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nick, Eric's here.
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Just one clarification from my side. Is the remuneration committee and the committee who is going to screen the directors who needs to be on the board and the directors who does not need to be on the board, are they linked? Or they just do a recommendation that this guy is correct and he needs to sit on the board, but we don't take care about his remuneration and another committee looks at his remuneration?
Not exactly. It appears that you have misunderstood the scope or the responsibilities of each of these two committees. So, as I mentioned earlier, the remuneration committee is supposed to look into the financial and non-financial rewards which we pay to board members. And on top of that, at the end of the year, if the company is profitable, the board members end up receiving a bonus. But all board members do not receive the same type of a bonus. They receive a bonus based on their performance. So these performance evaluations should be carried out by the remuneration committee. Why these rules came into play is the fact that if you look at companies such as WorldCom or Enron, they were playing with shareholders' money. The executive directors within these companies were playing with shareholders' money. So they appointed their own friends and relatives to the board and ended up plundering shareholder money. So in order to avoid such a situation, we have the remuneration committee, as per corporate governance best practice. Something similar can be seen in the USA concerning the Sarbanes-Oxley Act as well, which was passed in 2008 or 12. I cannot remember exactly. So, keeping it aside. So the remuneration committee's responsibility is to think in terms of conducting performance evaluations and paying them bonuses and determining the salaries of executive directors. So their responsibility stops at determining the remuneration of board members. And the nomination committee's responsibility is to, as and when necessary, appoint individuals to the board, kick people off the board, or to go for a total restructure. So the nomination committee's responsibility is not tied to determining remuneration. It should be handled by the remuneration committee. The nomination committee's responsibility is to opt for board appointments and, as and when necessary, kick someone out of the board or restructure the entire board. Got it?
Sure, thank you.
That is your concern?
Thank you. Thank you. This could lead to conflict of interest, and as you just mentioned. Thank you.
What do you mean? Conflict of interest? Between
In the sense that they could nominate their own friends and
exactly.
or relatives,
So in
as
order
you
to
just mentioned.
Yeah, so in order to avoid these type of conflicts of interest, that's why companies have a separate nomination committee, a majority of which comprise of independent non-executive directors, because these independent non-executive directors are there to represent shareholder interests within the board. which will prevent the executive directors from appointing their own friends or relatives to board positions. Got it?
Thank you. Thank you. Very clear.
You're welcome. And Zoom user is asking a question, how can we see this answer? Full form? Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is your answer plan, but your final answer should be something like this. So these are the suggested answers. So you have access to questions, suggested answers, and answer plans concerning each mock exam. We have developed the answer plans thereby, because when you read through all these information, you are not in a position to clearly see the most important points. So what we have done is we have actually developed a short note or a study summary of the entire suggested answer. So rather than going through 18 pages of information, you can see that the entire answer is contained within one single page, when the extended answer goes on for 1.5 pages. Okay, so as you can see, the entire answer goes on for not 1.5 pages, actually almost 2 pages, whereas all the points are contained within one single paper, which is going to be easy when it comes to understanding how to deal with application, how to structure your answers. And I said that as per our 3-step approach, you are supposed to revise by redeveloping answer plans. So after you have watched masterclasses, you saw how we conduct or what is contained within the masterclasses. After you have learned your theory and application, then you have to redevelop answer plans on your own. Then compare your fresh answer plans to TCSs. So when you are comparing your fresh answer plan to TCSs, you might figure out that you have missed out on the final point. You didn't remember. So when you do this, you are taking steps to revise your knowledge thoroughly, rather than reading through suggested answers, because you can read through suggested answers and gain something, but it won't stick in your head. The only way to make sure that you really remember everything, all the points, is to redevelop answer plans and compare your fresh answer plans to TCSs. I hope I addressed your concern. Eric is asking a question. A pre-assessment should be made in the audit and see what the skills that each one is bringing to the board. We need to retain the best and fill in the gaps where necessary. Is my understanding correct? A pre-assessment should be made in the audit. A pre-assessment, that I'm talking about something similar. I'm saying that we should conduct a skill audit. So at the moment, as per what we are doing, as per the current leadership and the type of operations, business operations we carry out, it appears that everything's under control as per what's highlighted within the pre-scene, because the pre-scene gives you an indication of what we have done in the past. All right, so as per the information, as per the financial statements, everything looks to be totally fine. But especially when we try to do something new, when we are trying to enter a new market, or when we are trying to go for some type of vertical integration, or when we are entering a totally new market, then we are trying to do something new. When this is the case, the capabilities of our board members might be tested. So that is why before acquiring Power Lithium, the board is contemplating about restructuring the board, or the possibility of us having to restructure the board. So when we are restructuring the board, you are supposed to conduct a skills audit with the prime intention of understanding the current capabilities of each board member and trying to figure out whether our existing capabilities are enough to tackle a situation or tackle a business tied to lithium mining. So if we feel after a skill audit, if we feel that our current board members can handle affairs even after acquiring a lithium mining company, then everything's totally fine. We can proceed with the current board. However, if we feel that after the skills audit, if we feel that we do not have the skills and capabilities within the board which enables us to successfully run a lithium mining operation, then we might think about opting for a board appointment. So it is up to the nomination committee to decide as to whether we should appoint a totally new non-executive director, or whether we should appoint an executive director. And their evaluations will be shared with the shareholders, and the shareholders have the final say. They will go for a vote and say whether we should appoint an executive director or a non-executive director, and also they will mention the fact that whether we should appoint just one individual, two or three individuals, or we should only appoint one or two non-executive directors. So the nomination committee's role is to nominate individuals to the board. The appointments are handled by the owners of the company, who are the shareholders. I hope I addressed your concern, Eric. Pre-assessment should be made in the audit. We need to retain the best. Yes. Zoom USA is asking a question. Can I not see if I don't have any of the course? Zoom user, so if you have access to the free resources or the free account, then you will have access to the first mock exam, its suggested answer and the answer plan, and you have the opportunity of attempting mock number 1 under exam conditions via our exam platform. However, you do not have access to the remaining 6 mock exams because all 7 mock exams are included via the paid courses, via both essential and premium courses. I hope I addressed your concern. Anything else, folks? So Sans is asking a question, is the 80 a pass mark or a percentage? You need to score 80 out of 150 to pass, or as a percentage, it's 54%. Zoom user is asking a question, do we still have enough time if we start today? I am resitting. Definitely. That's why I'm sharing this 3-week study plan with you, because we have made sure to cover all syllabus areas across the 7 mocks which we have developed. So you need not spend time to learn theory on your own. Theory can be learned easily when you attempt all 7 mock exams. Then you'd gain a clear understanding of how each conceptual element is tested, and therefore you'd know how to structure your answers accordingly. And with the intention of mastering each mock exam, stick to this 3-step process. I don't mind even if you do not stick to step number 1, because you just have 3 weeks on your hands. So even if you do not practice mocks under exam conditions, the most important elements are to learn and to revise. So watch the master classes which we have developed focused on our mock exams. You saw what is contained within our master classes a while back, because I essentially conducted a master class focused on a question titled board restructuring. So similarly, you are going to learn theory and application based on mock exams. Once you have tackled these 2 elements, take steps to revise by redeveloping answer plans. So if you do this, if you only focus on these 2 steps, you just need to dedicate something like 2 hours to watch the master classes, and to revise you need to dedicate something like 1.5 to 2 hours. So if you focus on each mock exam by dedicating 4 hours in total, then you are going to pass this exam comfortably. So you have 3 weeks, which highlights the fact that you should master 2 mock exams per week. You can easily do so if you stick to the study plan. The only cumbersome element is you having to attempt mocks under exam conditions, because you have to sit in one place across 3 hours. Most of you won't find time to sit in one place across 3 hours and attempt a mock exam in full. If you're struggling to find time, that's okay. Attempt mocks 1, 3, and 5. Still, if you're struggling time to attempt mocks under exam conditions, solely focus your attention towards master classes and conducting revision by redeveloping answer plans. By doing so, you are covering the entire syllabus. You are gaining an understanding of what type of scenarios can be thrown at your exam. You are gaining an understanding of how to tackle with theory and how to structure your answers and how to deal with application. When you have mastered all these elements, you will pass for sure. So answering your question, yes, you have enough and more time to pass, because this individual started just 3 weeks before the exam and ended up scoring 116. Okay, so you can achieve the same thing because at the very beginning, at the first webinar, we do share a 7 week or an 8 week study plan. No one sticks to it. Everybody waits until the last 3 weeks to start preparations. And this individual started 3 weeks before the exam, ended up scoring 116 when the pass mark was just 80. So you can achieve something similar if you stick to this 3-step approach when it comes to mastering each mock exam. And if you master each mock exam, you need not worry about passing your exam in the upcoming sitting. One of you is asking, okay, you're welcome. Zoom user is asking question, are you saying to keep attempting mock exams rather than just sit and read theory? Well, if you can read theory and pass, why would individuals fail? Why is the pass rate below 50%? If you look at the SCS pass rate, constantly across the past 6 years, it has been below 50%. Why is this the case? Because there's a technique which you need to get accustomed with. You need to take steps to improve your answering technique, because without improving your answering technique, you are not in a position to figure out how to deal with various different syllabus elements, how to deal with application. Because as I've mentioned earlier, the objective of CIMA case study examination is to figure out whether you have gained your knowledge concerning E3, F3, and P3 syllabi, and at the same time, whether you have the capability of implementing this knowledge when, or applying this knowledge when developing answers. So if you write highly theoretical answers, you are not going to get marks. Instead, you have to address the requirement at hand in a practical manner. So practical answers are the type of answers which are not highly theoretical, because your boss is not, sending an email to you to learn theory from you. Instead, your boss wants your opinion about something. And if you have to give your best opinion, you have to utilize the theory knowledge which you have gained via E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So if you sit with your theory and try to, learn theory on your own, you are not taking steps to improve your application skills. This is an application heavy examination. You are going to fail once more. So that is why it's essential that you stick to this 3-step process and forget about everything else. Solely focus on our mock exams, because as I mentioned earlier, we have covered all elements within our mocks. You need not worry about syllabus coverage. We have covered all elements. That's why you see 63 subtasks in total being covered within our mock exams. When you are conversant with how each syllabus area can be tested, then you'd know how to structure your answers, what should contain within your answers, and you are also supposed to take steps to practice your technique. When this is the case, you need not worry about learning theory, because you'd learn theory based on the mock exams themselves. And also, you will improve your application skills when you watch the master classes and when you take steps to redevelop answer plans. So when the examiner is testing your theory knowledge and application, when you take steps to learn theory based on mock exams, which is the easiest way to do so, because if I taught you about board restructuring, and then if I asked you to attempt a mock exam and deal application on your own, you are definitely going to struggle. You will have a good understanding of how to restructure boards, but when you try to do it on your own, you are going to struggle. That's why you need to practice your you need to learn your theory based on mocks. And at the same time, if you learn your theory based on mocks, you will easily figure out how to deal with application. So don't waste time to learn theory. In this exam, your application skills are tested. That is why you need to stick to the 3-step approach. If not, you are going to repeat this examination. I hope I addressed your concern, Zoom user. One of you is asking a question, where do we access the master classes? So the master classes are available via the premium course. Once you have gained access to the premium course or purchase the premium course, you will gain access to our student dashboard. And within the student dashboard, there's a videos tab. Under the videos tab, you will gain access to all these master classes. I hope I addressed your concern. Anything else? Any questions? All right, folks, seems like there aren't any questions. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and, asking these questions. I love it when you ask a lot of questions, which highlights the fact that you have learned something or gained something via this masterclass. So having said that, if you want to contact us, you can do it via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com. Visit our website and click on the contact button and drop us a message. Our admin staff will get in touch with you via email during office hours, or you can directly email us at info@study@tcs.com or WhatsApp us for instantaneous support via this number. And I also urge you to follow us on our social media handles, especially YouTube and TikTok, because the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops are uploaded to our YouTube handle. And also via TikTok, you'd gain access to 6 videos in total, which is a good pre-seen mind map. So on your way to office, for instance, on a daily basis, keep watching these TikTok videos so that you are constantly keeping yourself reminded of the most important points highlighted within your pre-seen document. And also, I urge you to read through the blog post, which we have developed focused on your chosen company and its industry. All right, so having said that, it brings us to the end of the third workshop or the third masterclass, which was focused on your E3 syllabus. I'm going to conduct a similar masterclass in next week as well, next Sunday. I hope you'd join it. And if you're yet to start preparations, don't doubt yourself. Don't be under pressure. You still have enough time. You simply need to master 2 mocks per week. You can easily do so. If you feel that you do not have enough time to attempt mocks under exam conditions, forget about it. Simply focus your attention towards watching the master classes to learn theory and application, and then test your knowledge by redeveloping answer plans on your own. This is the only way to make sure that you are conversant with the entire syllabus. You are conversant about how to structure your answers, how to approach each conceptual element, and also how, what to do in terms of improving your application skills. When you learn all conceptual elements and take steps to refine your application skills and answer structuring by practicing our answering technique, you are going to get extremely good marks at your exam. So be committed. If you commit yourself to the study plan, we have tackled everything from our side. So I hope you will stick to the study plan religiously and make sure to attempt or make sure to master 2 mock exams per week in the upcoming 3 weeks. So, and if you have any questions, drop me a message. I'm always there to help you. So thank you very much for joining. I'll see you guys next week at the 4th workshop. Thank you and take care.